Today in this lecture we are going back to this keyword and we will learn how can we set the this keyword manually and also why we want that this keyword in our code. Now let's say an example that we are in airline again. Now let's create an object using here I am using the name Tansa. Create an object. Now here in this airline we have a simple booking method. So for that we need the airline name. So for airline name that is I'm giving answer, and then we need the code that is LH. LH is the code, and now we also want to keep an array of bookings. So for that write bookings, that is give an empty array, and then now write the book method. I will now start using the way of writing methods here using the enhanced object literal syntax, and so that simply by defining the method like this without having to write a function. Now here in this method I am giving that the flight number and then the name of the passenger. Now let's log this console.log. Here giving the name. So for suppose giving Priya is the name. Priya booked a seat on, and then now here I am using the this keyword, this dot airline. This means that what we have here the airline name that should be printed here. And now also write the flight code. So flight and then give this dot code, and then the next one flight number. Flight number also need to include this one. Now we are done with this, and then let's call this Lufthansa dot giving the book function, and then give here I'm giving the flight number as 235 is the flight number, and then I need to give the name. So for that I am giving the name as Priya Sharma, and also I am giving the another one book. Now I am giving the flight number as 465, and then the name of the person Richa. Now let's see the result. Reload here. See here Priya Sharma, that is what we have given the name, that is Priya Sharma, and she booked a seat on this flight. What we have given the flight, this flight. So that is Lufthansa flight, and then the code that is LH, and then the flight number. The flight number here what we have given, the first one the 235 that is displayed, and then the next one what we have given the flight number and the name that is Richa, and Richa booked a seat on Lufthansa flight, and then the code that is LH and the flight number 465. Now here this keyword what we have given that is points to the Lufthansa object itself, because that is the object that on which the book method has we called. Now let's say that after some years the Lufthansa group created a new airline. So let's say that after some years the Lufthansa group created a new airline. So for that let's write const Eurowings and then name. Sorry, we need to give same as what we have here, that is airline Eurowings and then the code, that is EW, and then now the bookings, that is empty array. And we also want our book method because to add a new object to our bookings. Here I forgot to push this into bookings, so let's write that this dot bookings and then dot push, give the flight, give this, and then simply give the name. And also here console.log give Lufthansa. Now let's see the result. Now let's reload. Here see we have that in these bookings we have two array of two, that is 0, 1, and here in this first we have these two, this Priya Sharma and then the code 235 and then this Richa. We have pushed these two into this bookings array. So this means that these two are our bookings that we are stored in an array. So back to the our Eurowings. Now here also we want to take the bookings for the Eurowings. Now here if we want to take the same method, that is this book method, that is not a good practice at all. So we are not going to do that. So instead of that we will just take the method and store it in an external function. And then we can reuse that function for all of the different airlines. Now let's create here outside of the object write const and then give book, that is equal Lufthansa.book. We are giving the method that belongs to this Lufthansa object. So here this is possible because JavaScript has first class functions. So for that we can simply take this function and then store it into a new variable. Now let's try to use this book function to do a new booking. So let's write that giving 25 and then let's say the name as Sarah. Now let's see the result. Here we got that cannot read properties of undefined airline. This we got an error. This is because of the book function is now just a regular function call. And so as we learned in one of the previous sections in a regular function call, that this keyword points to undefined at least in strict mode. So this function here is no longer this method. So it is now this separate function. It is here the copy of this one, not a method. Here this keyword inside of this method will now point to undefined, and that's why this keyword depends on how the function is actually called. So make sure to understand these dynamics. But now how do we actually fix this error? Here in this scenario, we have three function methods to do that. And so they are call, apply, and bind. So when we talked about this keyword first, I think I mentioned these methods back then. Now here we are going to use the call and apply methods. So let me show you that. Place this in comments because it will not work. Not working. And so instead of that we use book dot call, and then this call is a method. Remember that function is really just an object and objects have methods. So therefore functions can have methods too, and the call method is one of them. And in this call method, the first argument is explicitly what we want this keyword to point. That is, here we need the Eurowings and then giving 25 and then give the name Sarah. Then log this to console.log Eurowings. Let's see the result that we have here. Sarah booked a seat on Eurowings flight, that is EW25. And also here we see that, see here in these bookings, we have that flight, that is EW25. This code is coming from this. Now let's recap all these. Here what we have did all this means we do not call the book function. Instead of that we called the call method, and then this call method which will call the book function with this keyword set to Eurowings. So here whatever we passed as the first argument of the call method, so this allows us to manually and explicitly set this keyword of any function that we want to call. Then all the arguments after the first one are the simply arguments of the original function. And so in this case of the book function, that's the flight number and the passenger name. Now we can do the same for also Lufthansa, that is right here book dot call Lufthansa, and then I am giving the number 230, and then I am giving the name as Mario. Now let's log this into console.log Lufthansa. Now let's see the result. We see that Mario booked a seat on Lufthansa flight, and then the flight code is LH and the number 230 what we have given. And then here in these bookings we see the first one and second one that we have given here, and then the Mario is also joined this bookings array. That with this we have total 3 bookings. Here in this scenario we said this keyword inside of the function call to Lufthansa. And so now here this is again pointing to the Lufthansa, while before it was pointed to this Eurowings. Even though the code of the function is inside of the Lufthansa object, what we made it so that this keyword pointed to Eurowings. So here the new object that we have manually manipulating this keyword, that is by using the call method. Now I am creating an airline again, that is const. I am giving the name now Swiss, that is equal, and then give the name Swiss Airlines, and then also code that is LX. And then next bookings. Now use our book function on the space. So let's write the book dot, give the call method, and then here write the space, and then give the code that is a 560 anything, and then give the name. I'm giving Mary. Then let's log this into console. Now let's see the result. We see that Mary booked a seat on this undefined flight. That means, yo, what happened? Okay, we need to give the airlines. Airline. Property name changed. We need to give all of the same property name. Now let's reload. See here, Mary booked a Swiss seat on Swiss Airlines flight, and then the code is LX560. And also now see here in this bookings array, we have one booking. So we are done with this. This is all about the call method. There is a similar method to the call method, which is called the apply method. And the apply method does basically exactly the same thing. The only difference is that apply does not receive a list of arguments after this keyword. So here let's see the example that it does not receive this list here, but instead of that it is going to take array of the arguments. So it will then take the arguments from that array and pass it into this function. So let's write that const flight data that is equal. Let's simply create an array with the flight number and the passenger name. So here write using the same flight, giving 560, and then I am giving the name John. Now we can use apply on the book function. So let's write the book dot apply, and then we just call the call method. So Swiss, and then we apply the front as the this keyword that is Swiss, and the next I just said an array of data that is here this array that is flight data. So let's write here flight data. Now let's log this into console.log, and then give the space. Now let's see the result. Dot apply, spelling mistake. Reload. See here we have the John booked a seat on Swiss Airlines flight LX560, and then here also in these bookings we have two bookings. That is this same flight. We see that this is the 560 and then this is also 560. So we have same flight, and then we have this Mary and John two bookings. So here we are done with this, but here the apply method that we do not use that much in JavaScript because we actually have a better way of doing the exact same thing. That is the call method. Let's simply take a look. Instead of writing apply, I am giving call with this and then gives, and now apply data. And now see here the result, we have that exactly the same result. So this is all about the call and apply, and in summary we have another tool also, and the tool that allows us to explicitly define this keyword and also in any function that we want. And but there is actually at another method which allows us to do the same thing, and that's the bind method that we see in the next lecture. So this is all about the session. Continue in the next lecture. Thank you.